I can't stop thinking about the time when I was in 7th grade and I fell down the whole flight of stairs and everyone saw it. I can't stop thinking about my ex. I can't stop thinking about what if I don't hear the alarm tomorrow in the morning and I'm late for work. And I can't stop thinking about what I'm going to do about my life. And I just can't stop thinking about it, even though I keep telling myself. And I also can't stop thinking about the game. And you can't either, because I just reminded you. These are all examples that we all have experienced in our lives, and it is the white bear phenomenon. And I think it is the coolest, funniest, but also most annoying thing that our brain does. It is this stupid thing that happens in our brains that when we tell ourselves that we don't want to think about something, then we probably will, which is so counterproductive to what we actually want. And today we are going to talk about why we do it, how it happens, why it happens, and how we can make it stop, or at least make it happen a bit less. And then if it does happen, what you can do so that you're not spiraling. And if you want to hear more about spiraling, there's another episode on that. Okay, let's get into it. I think this is such a cool thing. I don't know, I think it's very, very interesting. So I actually read, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes because I read research on it. And so the actual white bear phenomenon, or it's also known as the pink elephant paradox. So I guess it doesn't really matter. Like you could call it the brown snake or whatever. It's just whatever you choose to think about. But in the experiments, they were saying, don't think of a white bear and all that stuff. That's why it got that name. But at the end of the day, it is a theory, and it's called the ironic process theory because it's ironic. Well, I think the ironic stands for the scientific part of ironic, but it's still ironic. So this ironic process theory is basically, I think Daniel Wigner, I don't know how to say his name properly, but he started this whole thing because he was the one that conducted these experiments and studies at the start. And it's called How to Think, Say, or Do Precisely the Worst Thing for Any Occasion. Well, that's one of them. And I read that paper and it was very interesting. And then there's also like ironic process of mental control and stuff like that. So yeah, it's very interesting. And the Oxford Handbook of Social Cognition also has a chapter on it. I couldn't read all of it because you have to buy it, but it was very, very interesting. Yeah, so the chapter actually talks a lot about the thought suppression and how that is impacted, or the other way around, impacts, but mainly how it is impacted by psychological disorders. And it was talking about obsessive compulsive disorder, so OCD. It was also talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, worries, like when you have anxiety, any form of anxiety, depression, substance abuse. And I think that was it, yes. And it was very interesting. So maybe if you want to check that out. Anyway, let's get back to it. So it is this idea that we want to, the whole thing is about this idea that we have a thought or even an action or whatever, and we want to suppress it because we don't like it, because it's not what we are aiming for, because, you know, it could be anything. Like if you think about sport, right? A tennis player, when they play their, what's the name of it? When you start the game, you do the first one from the top where you swing it down. If you know the name, please tell me. You know, they practice this over and over and over and over again. And maybe there's this one thing that they often do that is the wrong turn, like maybe with their wrists or whatever. And it's basically like that, but your thoughts, right? And you keep doing it, even though you're like saying to yourself, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But then when it comes to it, you still hit it the same way, which is really annoying. So that is what we are going to talk about today, because it's just so, isn't it so annoying when you're like, especially for example, you just broke up with your partner, right? And then you want to distract yourself or whatever, but also you just want to lay in bed. But whenever you don't do anything, you're telling yourself, don't think about it, don't think about it, and you just keep thinking about it. And how annoying is that? And it goes with anything, with like the smallest things, like the most mundane things. Like, oh yes, today I was cleaning all of my mirrors, and I hadn't cleaned them this week, and I really wanted to, because usually I clean during the week and not on the weekend. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it, even though yesterday I was like on a hike, and I was like, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it. And here we are. I'm thinking about the mirrors. I know I need to clean them. Ah, it's so frustrating. But yeah, so let's talk about it. The white bear psychology. So it's this paradox, right? It's like a paradoxical phenomenon, because we are trying to suppress something, like a thought of a white bear or a pink elephant. And ironically, you trying to suppress that thought is making it more likely to occur and persist. And so that, which is also known as ironic process theory, is suggesting that suppressing thoughts can turn out the complete opposite way. Now, why even is that? So let's dive into what exactly happens when we are trying to suppress a thought, because it is quite interesting. So there's two things that we are doing. So let's make an example out of it. Let's say I don't want to think about my ex. So I'm telling myself, don't think about him, don't think about him. So I'm trying to suppress the thought of my ex. So we've got two processes happening here. One is the operating process and the other one is the monitoring process. And this is so interesting because they should be working together. So the operating process is where I am choosing not to think about it. So that's what's happening in that process. So it's like a top-down kind of thing, because I'm actively choosing not to think about it. But then at the same time, I've got this automatic controlling of this whole thing that is monitoring for this thought, because like anything, our brains and our bodies only want to do whatever is needed. So if I no longer am thinking of this thought or am doing this action anyways, then there's no point anymore to be operating it at all. Like this process then becomes useless, so I can get rid of it. So that is why I also have monitors, and this process is looking for it. And like it is already saying, it is looking for the thought. So once this isn't in balance anymore, the operating and the monitoring process, then we have a problem. Because for the operating process, since I am doing that from top down, so I am actively doing this process in my brain, I can get tired, I can get fatigued, I can get exhausted, stressed, or maybe distracted, whatever, while as the monitoring process is automatic. So that is always happening. So this is so interesting, because when you get exhausted, and it doesn't have to be like my body's exhausted, but when your brain is exhausted, then the monitoring process is monitoring more than you are operating. And all of a sudden, now we are picking it up and we are getting exactly what we don't want, because now we are thinking about our ex. And I think that is so cool to understand, because now we can actually work with that, right? And this also goes for like silly things, like when you know that usually when you get out of bed, you bump into the corner with your leg and you're like, no, not today, I'm not doing it, but it still happens. So it's for anything, right? It's just, of course this had to happen. And it's like, or also like you start thinking, is it a sign? Especially when it's about partners and people and stuff, you start thinking, well, I can't seem to stop thinking about them, so maybe it's a sign that I should reach out or that I should do that. Wrong. This is probably not a sign. It's probably the opposite of a sign. It's probably you being so exhausted by this reoccurring thought that you can't stop it, and it's coming up even more. And you know why? What else? Why? You know another reason why it's not a sign? Because if it was a sign, then it would also be a sign to go and see a pink elephant or a white bear, because you can't stop thinking about those either. Yeah, that's right. So no, it is not a sign. Don't look at it that way. If you want to, of course, go for it. Go for gold. Good luck. But it's not a sign. You can make it a sign if you want to, though. Adventure, why not? Okay, let's get back to it. I just think this is so interesting that our brain is doing that because it's trying to protect us. It's trying to be like, oh, beep, I've seen it there it is, we need to suppress it. But then we start putting even more focus on it. I think it's so funny. But as I said, we now know that this actually should not be happening. It's happening because there's a disimbalance. I don't know if that's even a word, but it's not in balance anymore. So naturally, there's things that we can do to prevent this and also to make sure that we can stop it once it does start happening. And another thing that they did in the studies, which I thought was interesting, but I kind of already knew about this, but I still think it's just a fun fact, is like, have you ever taken these tests where you have like colors written, like the colors are written out in words, but then they're written in a different color? I can't speak today, but you know, like maybe it says yellow, but then the word yellow is written in green, and then the other part of the study was that they were written in the same color. So yellow would be written in yellow and green in green and all of that. And obviously it makes so much sense, and you've probably done it before as well. But obviously it was so much easier and people could say it so much faster when it was congruent, while as when they had to say the color of the color, but it was written a different color, then it was so much harder and it took them longer. So where was I going with this? This was part of the study, well, of a study, because it has to do with the mental load, because they have to suppress the thought of what they're reading to be able to say the color in which it is written, right? Like if you keep reading yellow, it's so hard to say that the yellow is written in green, while as if it's yellow and it says yellow, then it's so easy because there's nothing that your brain needs to go and suppress, like no information that isn't adding up to what you're trying to say. So that shows that there is mental load behind thought suppression. So obviously, the more you have to suppress certain thoughts, the more mental load it is, and so it makes it harder and harder for you to suppress it because you are exhausting your brain. So that's a really good thing to know, because we don't want that because that makes everything so much harder. So let's get into what we can do. Like I already said, anyways, I just wanted to tell you that because I think that's really cool to understand why this is even an important experiment, because like it's fun to do. Like I've done it with my students before because it was like a stress test and we wanted to see how they felt under stress. But it's already saying like it's stress, right? Because it's like, oh, which color, blah, blah, blah. But it was a little bit different. But anyway, it's like a fun activity to do, but what even is behind it, I think that's interesting. So it shows the mental load that we use. Yes. Okay, let's get back to it. So there's a couple of things that we can do. First of all, like we already talked about, stress and whatever is going to make it harder for us to suppress our thoughts, which is also why the very first experiment, I reckon, that is just my personal opinion, but it's a little bit blurry because the people were sitting, I think it was like a circle, and they had to have like conversations. And they were told not to think of the white bear, but every time they thought of the white bear, they would have to ring a bell. So there's like a lot going on because there's social interactions and stuff, and also you keep hearing the bell ring when someone thinks of a white bear. Maybe I understood the experiment completely wrong, but I just think, of course, there is so much mental load, like there's a lot happening, a lot of stress factors and stuff. So of course that's going to make it hard to suppress the thought, especially if it keeps coming up because you keep hearing the bell and you know that means a white bear. That's like me telling you don't think of the game, right? And then you think of the game. I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about, but you know, this social media thing where you're like, don't think of the game, it's like years old. I don't even think it started on social media, but now you just see it sometimes where like someone posts like the game and then you're like, I wasn't meant to think about it. But yeah, I just reminded you again. Okay, let's get back to it. So yeah, it's a little bit hard to say because it wasn't like a normal situation for them, because they kept being reminded of it, right? But it kind of adds to the point of the more stressed you are and the more exhausted your brain gets from suppressing the thought, the more likely it is to come up. So yeah, that's full stop. Okay, so what they found for tools and stuff is, first of all, I think most of us can say that without running any experiments, but doing nothing is not going to help. Like, think about the last breakup you've gone through. Like, whenever you were just sitting in bed or just being by yourself on the couch, like scrolling on the phone maybe, but you know, low activity, low social interaction, blah, 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 you probably didn't feel very good because you kept thinking about it. So that's already a no. And it makes so much sense because, like anything in life, if you don't replace it with something, of course it's going to hurt so much more and it's going to be on your mind so much more. It's like, I remember when you probably know that too, like when you move out for the very first time in your life, out of your family home, and of course you had some sort of traditions, like maybe you would eat together every Sunday or something like that, or it can be something smaller, like, I don't know, watch a movie on Friday night. I don't know if that's smaller, but you know, just something, some sort of tradition. And then here comes the very first Sunday where you live alone now, or not alone, but not with your family anymore. And so you don't have that. And then if you end up not doing anything, then you keep thinking about it and you get sad. Whereas what you then probably started doing was replace it with something, right? Like maybe you started having the Sunday lunch with a friend, or maybe you just made yourself a nice lunch date, you know, or maybe you took yourself out, or maybe you started watching movies with friends or something like that. Like you started replacing it. Doesn't even have to be the same thing. Like it could be like going out instead of movies or whatever you want, but you probably started replacing it because you know that feels better. Because yes, it's a distraction, but distractions aren't always bad. Like go and distract yourself. Why would you want to sit there and be sad? You're thinking about it, okay, and yes, don't push it away, but you're aware that this is making you sad. And now, okay, it's making me sad. Let me go and do something else. Let me go and do something fun. Let me go and do something nice with this time that I've got. Why would you want to put yourself through that? I don't really understand that. Like sit with it for a second and then let it go. That's my opinion. Very strong opinion, as you can tell. Like I really genuinely think we should talk about things that are on our minds, but then also we need to be able to keep going and, you know, yes, distract yourself if you have to. Go and move overseas if you have to. Just do what gives you happiness. Why do you have to sit in the sadness? Yeah. So we already know not doing anything is probably not going to help. It's probably going to make it worse. So distraction. Let's talk about distraction. Is it good? Is it bad? So they actually looked at it, and what they found was that having lots of different things and lots of different thoughts or whatever to replace this one thing that you're trying to suppress with is not as helpful as having one thing, one strong thing or thought or action or whatever, replacing the thing that you're trying to suppress. So for instance, me saying I miss my ex, well, me saying I don't want to think about my ex, what I should do is not go and, okay, I'm going to go out, I'm going to call my friend, I'm going to make yummy food, I don't know, I'm going to go buy chocolate, like I'm going to do this. That's not going to be as helpful as having one thing that is my distraction for that thought. Whether it's another thought, like maybe I can reframe it and just say, whenever I think about my ex, I am going to switch to puppies. And I'm just going to start thinking about puppies and how cute puppies are and how much I love puppies, you know, and then I just start doing that every single time. Or every time I think about my ex or try not to think about my ex, I am going to go and drink a glass of water because that's always accessible. Or maybe I am going to listen to my favorite song. But maybe then that's not going to be my favorite one anymore. So I don't know about that. Just, see what works. Or maybe you're going to go for a quick run. I'm going to go for a 10-minute run every time I think about them. That might be a lot though. So, you've got to figure out what works for you. But you get what I'm saying? You want to have one replacement for that one suppression, because that's more effective. Well, that's what they found, which is interesting, right? And a lot easier as well, because then I'm just going to do this every time this happens. And why do you think that's easier? Because your brain can start rewiring, and it's like priming for it now. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like starting to automatically go to that activity that you've chosen, the replacement. Because every time you think about it, you're like, okay, water. Oh, I miss my ex, water. I miss my ex, puppies, whatever you chose. And then your brain can start rewiring that real quick. And maybe you don't even notice that thought anymore. Maybe you just straight away notice the puppies in your head. So that's what they found. Then another tool that they found that can be helpful with thought suppression is, obviously just rest. Like, you want to be rested, not exhausted. Like, also your mentally and physically and whatever. Like, you can always suppress your thoughts, your intrusive thoughts, better when you are rested. So you can choose to do things that help you rest, like meditation, yoga, breath work, yoga nidra, and all those kind of things, sound healing, whatever, like all of the things that make you feel rested. And also just look after your brain, like saunas, ice baths, all that stuff. Exercise can be really good. But then we're already like leaning into distraction again, which is fine as well, right? They're kind of overlapping a little bit. But yeah, want to have that rested mind. Yes. So go to bed, sleep it off. I think sleeping it off is such a good phrase, because it's so true. Just sleep it off. If you're having a bad day, sleep it off. But then there's the problem if you can't sleep. But we'll talk about that another time. So yes, then apart from that, another thing that they found was self-affirmations. And what they mean with that is that when you use like self-affirmations, like for example, telling yourself, I'm gonna explain it first, and then I'm gonna give you the example. So you can suppress a thought like I miss my ex by using affirmative, like self-affirmative sentences. For example, if I have the thought that I'm scared of hanging out, because social anxiety, right? I'm scared of hanging out, I'm so worried about tonight, and I'm trying to suppress that thought, I can start using self-affirmative language like I am very social, but only if it aligns, right? Like if that doesn't align with you, don't say it. But these self-affirmations can be really helpful with thought suppression, because it is a replacement. You're replacing the thought with a really strong sentence that is going to empower you as long as it aligns. With the I miss my ex, you could probably say something like, I have a fulfilling life, if that feels like you can relate. If you don't feel like you have a fulfilling life at this point, then we need to make some changes. No, it's okay. It's fine. But yeah, so try and reframe the thought. It's fine. Like accept it and then be like, okay, no, that's actually not too bad. I can miss my ex, but I'm going to suppress this. I'm going to say, but look at everything I've got. Look at all the friends I've got, the amazing family, the support system, So yeah, all of these self-affirmations can be very, very helpful, and they facilitate the effectiveness of thought suppression. Yes, how cool is that? And just with our mind, which is obvious because the thought that we're having is also our mind. We're just battling with our minds all day long. But isn't that fun? Well, it's interesting. And then the last thing I want to say, which isn't really a tool, but it's like, just do avoid it. Do run away. Do forget about it. Do distract yourself. Just don't face it. Like, not everything has to be faced. Not everything has to be dealt with head on first. I don't know what they're saying. How does that end? it's fine. It's fine. You can leave it. Like, if it's really bothering you at this point, you keep thinking about it and think about it and think about it. Trying to deal with it at this point is probably not going to get you anywhere anyways. Like, you're probably going to spiral, you're probably going to overthink, and you're probably not going to get to a point of resolution that is objectively good. Because you are not looking at it objectively. You are subjectively spiraling, being overwhelmed by this thought that you're trying not to have. So just run away from it. Seriously. And literally go for a run. Like, that's fine. Don't be so hard on yourself. You don't have to deal with everything at right now. It's okay. You've got time. You're not a bad person for that. And there is like science behind that. I was just talking about this, right? Like, they found that distracting yourself is helpful. And that is against the conventional clinical belief of having to use, exposure therapy, like that is the most beneficial treatment. And of course that can be beneficial. But when that top-down cognitive control fails, which is the operating process, then we usually would intervene with this bottom-up solution, which is expose yourself to the negative and then, try to deal with those thoughts and emotions. Whereas, why not use an alternative route instead that has also shown to be beneficial, which is just another top-down solution, and that is just strengthen your cognitive control through a strategic focus on something else. Just choose to focus on something else, and that is building control over your focus again, right? Like, it's just shifting your attention onto a distractor that is going to make you feel a lot better than missing your ex or trying so hard not to miss them. Yeah, that's it for today. I hope that was interesting. I think it's so cool. And just remember, it is not a sign, because otherwise you have to go to the North Pole right now, because white bear. Okay, thanks so much for listening. I didn't even introduce myself. This is Growing and Showing. I am Sabrina, and together we are building our best lives together. Thanks for listening. I will see you again next week. Bye.